All right, chapter 4, polynomial functions. We're going to work on degree and leading coefficient. This should look real familiar because we did this in 3.7. So I have 3 polynomials in yellow here, and you have to fill in the blue blanks. So if I said, what's the degree of this first one, that would be like saying, what's the biggest exponent? So what is it? It is 2. And the leading coefficient of this would be the number that multiplies the variable in, of the highest order. So it'd be 3x to the second. So the leading coefficient would be 3. Okay, what's the degree of number 2? It would be correct. That's 3. And the leading coefficient would be -1 because that's the number in front that multiplies. A coefficient is a number that multiplies the variable term. So that'd be -1. So -1. This one, the degree, 4. Remember, it's the highest one, not necessarily the first one. Polynomials, by the way, are supposed to be written in what's called descending order. That's from the biggest exponent to the smallest. So this should actually be rewritten as -5x to the fourth minus 5/2 x to the third, like that. That would be proper. This is not really proper, but they try to fool you. The leading coefficient, -5. -5. Can a fraction be a leading coefficient? Of course it can. So that's the answer to that. So if you did have one like 1/2 x squared plus 7, the degree would be 2 and the leading coefficient would be 1/2. You can have fractional coefficients for sure. So there's going to be some of that. And then you have a little bit more involved problem like this. And it says, here's a function. This is a cubic function. So it is going to generate a graph, which I'll draw here. I'll just sketch it here in a second, that crosses the x-axis many times. And it wants to know 2 questions here. Is -4 a root of this function? Is it a root of the function? And that's like saying, does it cross the x-axis? Let me do that again. Got extraordinarily sloppy there. X-axis at -4. So that's your verbal. Here's what that means. Does it cross the x-axis at 4? And instead of graphing, let's do it like we're supposed to, and that's by evaluating. So what we do is we stick -4 in for this x. We do f of -4, and we've done this so much. Again, you're doing this with me. Try to beat me done. If you're a little confused by what I'm doing, watch. Otherwise, go ahead and try to beat me done there. -4 squared, 10 times -4 minus 8. If we do this correctly, and if it comes out 0, which this one should, then the answer will be yes. So these are yes or no questions. This will be -64. This is -6 times 16, which, let's see, that would be -6 times 16 plus -40 minus 8. That's going to be 96. So it's -64 minus 96 minus 40 minus 8. Okay, so when you expand this out, you're going to get -208. If you get anything but 0, the answer to this is no. So we would write no to that. Now, let's change this one, because I did miscopy this, and make this a +4 and see what happens. Remember, when you take the root of something, it is a root if it equals 0. So if f of whatever you are putting in there equals 0, then yes, it's a root, is basically the rule you have to remember. So let's try it at +4 this time and see what happens. So that'd be f of 4 cubed minus 6 times 4 squared. I believe this one works. 10 times 4 minus 8. So that's going to be 64 minus, and that's going to, again, be minus 96 plus 40 minus 8. 64 minus 96 is negative 32 plus 40 minus 8. Put my equal sign there. And we're just left to writing this thing now. Negative 32 plus 40 is 8 minus 8 equals 0. So if that happens, then we say yes, it is a root. And the reason why is that's where this graph crosses the xy axis. If I just sketch a quick picture of this, I do believe it is going to come up, go something like this, and then cross right through the x-axis at 4. So it's going to have, its root is going to be called positive 4. Any other point that I try to plug in this, including negative 4 would have been out here somewhere, and this thing would drastically drop off fast. You can see that it goes down to negative 208 on the x-axis. I mean, since we did that, negative 4, negative 208, clear down here somewhere. I mean, that would be sharper than that. It would be clear to the floor. But that would be how that would work. Sometimes, just to point this out, the word root, the word 0, and the word solution are all synonyms. They're all the same things when you're talking about this. So if you ever hear any of these words, they're kind of the same thing. So a root, a 0, if it asks you to find the zeros of the graph, it would be where it crosses the x-axis, the x-axis. All right. There you go. Have a good one.